No questions. Question for the second class. First classes. Second class covered by Dennis. Do we have any question for Dennis? Jeff? That's a hand.
Yes. So Dennis pointed out something, and was a reference that he made when he gave the example of the noise 16 and electron to highlight how the American system is fragile. And so my question from that point is twofold. One, so how is that fragility different from any other institutional system?
Different from?
How is that fragility unique to, say, for example, what is in the American system or that system of government? And how is it unique to that system of governance? So the contrast in that I'm giving is we have institutions or any other systems that also depend on goodwill for them to actually thrive. Remember the analogy he gave. I'll explain this when the asking the question.
Yeah.
So the analogy he gave was the explanation that when who was it? Thomas Jefferson, who was that? Benjamin Franklin. But when they were from the convention, then was asked what did you give us, then the response was I don't know what we can give it. Yes. So my question is how is that that system when I think we've had the system like decided depending on goodwill. So how is that fragility unique? How is it different? And so my next question, if you look at it, is which could be sentiment from fragility the system be the same if it were people standing up for American standing up against a tyranny. Would he still say that that system is fragile?
Or if people could have stood for
because the United States was people who were to accept an immediate result of an democratic process. So if those people are standing up against a tyranny, we did still reflect on that system as a fragile system.
Any other question for the second class? Yes, Chadi.
I had a question for the third class.
Oh, first, yeah.
It was just a clarification on Matthew 16, verse 13 to 20, where you see Peter make one that Christ is the cornerstone and on it was going to build that church. So my question is, how could she elaborate? Not she explained it, but could she explain, because I missed the point where how do we apply that verse in 1989? Who's Peter, and how do you apply that verse or those verses in 1989? I know we have the book word, which is Caesarea. Now I would like to understand how we apply that verse. I know
the verse is Matthew
16,
18.
Yes, Matthew 16. Yes, 13 to 20.
Okay. Any question? Do we have anyone who has the question for the first class? First class.
Yes, how about we see all the things
The first, the second. Any can answer.
How can you see what?
Equality in 2001. Simple, easy. Rogers?
Let me say,
Yeah.
we get from the fifth, sorry, from the fourth to the fifth kingdom, learn from a republic to a dictatorship.
Yeah.
So I want to recognize that from let's get teaching about black people. Julius Caesar. They say Caesar is the one who had an end to the Roman Republic. It's the Roman Empire. So how do we reconcile it?
Yeah. So then it says, when you come to the fourth kingdom, there is a change between a republic to dictatorship. Yeah.
The fourth and fifth kingdoms.
Or fourth and fifth, yeah.
That is wrong. So he said the fourth is a republic,
Yeah.
the fifth is a dictatorship. So I think the idea was to make an application to the United States.
Yeah.
But USA land, which is number 6,
Yeah.
is a republic. USA dragon, which is number 7, is a dictatorship. I want to reconcile that with what we think that Caesar brought an end to the Roman Republic and instituted the Roman Empire, which is a dictatorship.
Yeah. Any other question? Brian? Yes.
He marked 2001 as the change of leadership.
Mhm.
And he paralleled 2001 with the Declaration of Education. And he said that the COP, we have change of leadership. They said, we don't change the this plan.
Yes.
I think for me, I think it's consistent. Because why we compare something happening inside the internet, what justification can see how do we have compare a change in leadership inside the priests as a movement compared to what liberalism, which is here from the seventh kingdom to Christ. I thought it should be the other way around now. We should learn from the bigger level and then we apply the flat to the bigger level. We understand.
Yeah.
It's just pretty clarifying why we said that the history of the alpha histories where histories are favored.
Any,
It's if you understand and I want to which one we're going to make that perfect.
he took the soul of the daughter. Which one is going on with perfection? So, Any other question?
Clarification. How we see to this, is that Skylar?
That is to the third presentation. Like this. Okay. Have we finished with the second presentation? Questions? Yeah, okay.
Okay, get along. Okay, 2 years, it's done. It's done.
So the question Isabella is asking, wants clarification. That is this your question. The question is, I will repeat it for you again. So clarification from Isabella wants a clarification how Julius Caesar is external and Pompey internal. I think you would say something of one is internal, the other one is external. Remember? Yeah. Clarification. Julius Caesar internal. Oh, whichever one is internal, the other one is external. So you clarify that. Any other question? We have the third implementation. That's the Sunday Wima and the proofs of that Wima. Any questions? Yes, done?
I want clarification from that.
Yes.
1945. How Russia is the kingdom of South. When it was seen in the 1719, you see A and B. The kingdom of South coming to the kingdom of North. 1959, we see kingdom of North coming to the kingdom of South. How comes when we thought that we see the kingdom of South is
Could you repeat? I got the first part that clarification 1945 how Russia is the king of the South. Uh-huh.
when we know that 1919,
Yeah.
see the kingdom of the South coming to the kingdom of North. When we go to 1989, see the king of the North running against the king of the South.
So the question Dan is asking is about clarification of how the king of the South, that is said 1945, is Russia. And now when you come to 1798, we see that 1798 or 1989. 1989, we have the
You see the king of North versus king of South, which is necessary. 1798, we see the kings, this king of the North and king of the South.
so can I write your question as who is the king of the South in those east?
1945.
1945. Right.
So
Yes.
I think what is asking,
Mm.
if in 1718, the South is France.
Right, yeah.
That's the time of the
Yeah.
1989, time of the king of the South is Russia.
Yeah.
How come Russia is the king of the South way before 1980? No.
Oh. Okay. Any questions? Just me. Okay. It's a question from what that is deep, but did I tell me? Oh, did I ever say that? Okay, we see it's definitely has to be payment with him or the one. Yeah. The team. And can we see perfection In Daniel 2. Daniel 2. Yes. So that's the question with yes, yeah. Yes. I think I think either Emma or Dennis can answer that. Yes. Because I thought Dennis also said that. Any other question? We're done. So we can start with Gemma's question. So Gladys is having a lot of questions. Yes, okay. We'll start with I had yesterday we had the questions for Brian. So I think we can start with Brian's questions. Then we'll come with Diana's questions. Itabo, then Gladys. So you have 2 questions. I read it for you. So you have the Brian, you have the question. So Varang was asking, I think we have the 2001 several events that so Varang was having wanted a clarification on tech and prestige. Like that. And yeah, and the second, you should answer that one.
Okay, so I marked a number of events that marked the women 2001. And one of them is no, it's not 2001. It's 1989. 1989, I marked the following events. I went through the fall of Berlin Wall, which marked the end of the Cold War. And I said the Cold War between communism and capitalism was based on 5 key backgrounds. So the first one is on ideology, the system that will shape the world. Number 2, it was politics. We have military power, economics, and tech and prestige. So we wanted you to clarify on how the Cold War shaped under tech and prestige. So under technology, we understand the Cold War between the United States of America and Soviet Union was all about ideologies. Who is going to shape the technology in Europe? So under prestige, I will begin with prestige. Prestige comes under 3 subtopics. Number 1 is sports. Number 2 is standard of living and education. So communism and capitalism were fighting over who gives the best prestige. That's why we have inventions. So in the United States, under the Cold War, they invented a number of machines which will determine the kind of the standard of living for the people living in the United States. So the country which gave its people the best life, the best standards of living, was considered to be winning over the other one. So that is under prestige. So under tech, we had the space race. We understand the first between USSR and between the Soviet Union and the United States, which was the first one to send somebody to space. Which one? In which year? So it was the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was the first country to send a human being into space, and it happened in 1961. So when they sent a human being to space, they saw it as a superior characteristics over the United States. But later on, in 1969, the United States sent somebody, the Apollo, to the moon. And that's how they were competing. I think it's about who goes to space and who controls everything happening in space. Number two is invention of computers and microprocessors. I think if you can go and do your research, you can be able to see the following happening. So, who has any ideas from tech and space and how they were competing in the whole world? I think you will go and do your research in the same. The second question.
So the second question is the connection between Marx asked the question, the connection between external and internal events.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that. So so assuming this is our formula, and this is the external events, and this is the internal events. So this is the first WIMAC 1989, 2001. So let me use the line of the priests. So the question is the relationship between the external events we mark in every WIMAC and the internal events. So when we go to the Bible prophecy, especially the book of Daniel chapter 11, it gives us the history of nations, the rise and fall of the king of the north, and that is what we mark as external events. So in my understanding, I understand that the external events gives us the WIMACs. 1989 we mark the fall of Berlin Wall. That is an external event to the movement. 2001 is the major event we mark here is the Islam. That is an external event. It gives us a WIMAC. When we come to 2014, I will do a study tomorrow. We mark an external event. So the external events gives us WIMACs. So when they give us WIMACs, these external events, for example, when you go to Daniel, this is Daniel 11, verse number 40. By the time we come to Daniel 12:1, at the close of probation, after the king of the north has risen into power, conquering the three octavos, then the seventh kingdom is coming to its end, and Michael is going to stand up. So when we come to the last WIMAC, so this is Daniel 11, verse 40, time of the end, and then this is Daniel 12:1. This is the close of probation. All these in Daniel chapter number 11 are external events. But these external events, they require us to have a corresponding experience. At the end of the seventh kingdom, Michael is going to stand up. That's the close of probation. At the close of probation, God's people are supposed to be prepared for Jacob's time of trouble. So I think these external events, they are markers to show God's people the experience they are supposed to have in all these reform lines. I'm going to give some illustrations of the same. When we go to the model of the angels, the first angel comes with a message: fear God, give him glory, for the hour of judgment is come. So that is, I think it's naturally an internal experience. God's people are called to fear him because the hour of judgment is come. When we come to the second angel is saying Babylon is fallen. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Now the third angel comes with a warning against receiving the mark of the beast. If I can go to the Middle history, the mark of the beast was the issue of slavery. Was slavery an internal issue or external? External. So when we come from the first angel, we can see the message is the message is packaged as if it's only an internal experience. But as we go forward, this is the second angel. By the time we come to the third angel, we can see our message is both internal and external. Because the slavery issue in 1850 was an external event. And God's people were supposed to have a stand on the slavery issue. So that is an external event that requires some corresponding experience from God's people. The second illustration is the model of the number 7. The 7 churches, 7 seals, and the 7 trumpets. In the history of the great controversy, the 7 churches, they represent the experience of God's people. This is internal. This is external. This is in between. So I will mark the 7 churches here. This is the 7 churches, which illustrates the experience of God's people internally. When we come to the 7 trumpets, it's symbolic of what happens in the world, in the nations. So the experience externally, the external events, 7 trumpets, the rise and fall of kingdoms. Now we've remained with one 7, which is the 7 seals. I would like to say that the 7 seals is symbolic of the experience of God's people in relation to the external world. Are we there? The relationship between God's people and the external world. So I'm going to mark the 7 seals here. The transition between the external and the internal. This one is going to show us, indeed, the external and the internal events in our formula are linked and connected. And God's people are supposed to have an understanding of all those. Are we together? So the last one is Acts 27. Acts 27 is a story, Paul's story. It's journey from Jerusalem to Rome. But when we understand it as a parable, it illustrates the experience of 2 institutions. The first one is the United States, and the second one is what? Adventism. So in one story, we have both experience of external experience and what? And internal experience. Are we together? That is how I understand the internal and external events. Addition. Thank you.
Definitely. Good evening. Answer. Good evening, yeah. Sabina, what's the first question?
Let's just begin. In the Cold War, the USA that is not there in the Cold War. What I would say is that simply do not do in the Cold War, that's 1945 to 1989. It's not on the ball. Just I can tell. So, just been asking about the King of the North. Just asking. If this is 1945, is that? Yeah. Yes. What's the question? The Cold War is continuing USA. So what type of? The USA, they are regions informed in the Cold War, King of the North. Or because here we say this is the King of the North, who is Hitler or Germany, was fighting versus the King of the South. And then we say the King of the North was defeated. So you are asking who is the King of the North now this time period or until it's night? No, because they have been involved in the Cold War. The King of the North of
The USA, so the Cold War is between USA and USSR.
Oh, yes. USA versus USSR, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Which type of USA is this now?
So is that USA the King of the North?
Yeah, it is the King of the North. But now when the reach in 1989, we see when first 40 part B, it says, who's going to paraphrase? The King of the North comes against
Many chariots and many.
with many chariots. So we say that the King of the North is purposely is using the chariots of USA. They're going to place the sun to fall down. But I would like the class of people about understanding, various understanding. Yes, Rogers.
So if that is part B,
Yes.
says the King of the North is not common. So that is ships and horsemen.
Yeah.
So the symbol of chariot, ships and horsemen is a symbol of the States.
Of United States.
Yes. And then the symbol of the King of the North is the papers. So they becomes challenging. If the King of the North is the papers actually tonight, how is USA the King of the North before? Yeah. And now it changes to something else at 1989. So my thoughts are, I don't think USA is the King of the North world. The USA that's fighting against the USSR is the glorious star. Okay. So I think the King of the North from 45 all the way to 89 is the papers.
Is the purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Then the USA that is fighting in the USSR is the glorious star.
Okay.
Because my understanding is when you come to 89, the USA is the chief terrorist and horseman, the papers is the King of the North. Now the papers is going to usurp the title of the King of the North from the paper. Sorry, the USA is going to usurp that title from the papers and perhaps the King of the North from 1991 forward.
Okay, so by 1989, we see USA stealing the crown of the King of the North from the papers. Can we say so?
It begins to wrestle that crown from the papers and takes it by 1991.
By 1991.
Another argument making was the way you have thought about the relationship between the 6th and the 7th kingdom. We have used the 7th church, which is the relation between the church of Ephesus and the church of Laodicea.
Yeah.
So when you do that, you see that the church of Ephesus begins at the time of the end.
Yeah.
It doesn't begin before the time of the end. So you have Laodicea going down, Ephesus coming up. That same one, Laodicea, the 6th kingdom going down, and Ephesus coming up, which is the king of the north. So if Ephesus does not begin before the time of the end, the king of the north can't be there before the time of the
end. I think I get your point. Does that it? Yes, but I have questions like in my mind, like the USA, which is glorious land, give sanctions to those nations of USSR. Now, I see that the way I don't understand how they were behaving. Right?
So you still have to decide.
Okay, I was saying, when you look at this USA, as leaders are saying, Okay, it's like nothing. What I want to understand. You see, USA is giving sanctions to these nations of USSR. Now I don't understand how they are behaving. Because you can see the USA now is dealing with the king of the South. So I don't understand how that is. Yes. Rogers, you want to respond? Yeah.
So, is the USA giving sanctions to USSR? It's been not a good,
That's what I'm saying, that I don't understand what that USA is going to do.
So you think it's been about the sanctions of the USSR?
Yes, because it wants USA to follow. I can see Sabina. You want to respond? Yeah, I just wanted to agree with what Brenda said, that when you mark 1945, you mark the USSR plus the Western Allied, where we mark USA. So we see there from that parable, USA is against the king of the North. So when you come to the Cold War, 1945, 1949, is that USA that you marked there, which is the USA that was supporting the USSR, that is having the Cold War with USSR. So the USA there, you didn't mark it as the people of the North, you marked it as the glorious land. I would argue it is the same USA that is having a Cold War. Coming to 1989 is where we see now the rise of the king of the North, USA, that is working against the king of the South. So I don't see USA as the king of the North before mobility. So in this time period, it is the papacy who is fighting with this USSR. Can we say so? Or who is the king of the North? So it's
The Cold War started at the two of the North. But towards the end of the Cold War, that's why you see the purpose bringing USC start over the Russia. So that's why we see it's either the king of the North, king of the South. And remember, we have two terms of the end. 1798, starting of the end, and 1989, term of the end. We don't have anything like term of the end in 1945. See there, king of the North and the king of the South. So we see king of the North and the king of the South towards the end of, towards the end of 1985.
So your problem is that I place the king of the North versus the king of the South in this time period.
No, I want you to show me, come to vibration. You see the king of the North and the king of the South in 1845, and again, 1798 and then 1989 is the two times of the end.
Oh, I see one. So I think for you in 1917, 98, the king of the North was the king of the North and the king of the South here is France. That's this France, and king of the North here is Papacy. This is
So I don't know. Are we done with this question?
okay, let us finish. We're not. Okay, I think we should finish with just the question before we move to this kind of. It's not the yours at hand. Sometimes I think the history of World War II is very complicated. Yes, because I think there are several lines that are running there. Yeah. But I remember when we talked about the list of fighters. Yeah. The issue between the king of the North and the king of the South, and Germany and Russia. I think another line that was overlaid was the line of the counterfeit.
where we see the papacy is looking for a beast in Germany, but it fails to do that. So if you can, sorry, when you reach 1945, the papacy has failed to get a beast, but we also see the United States rising in the sense that, you know, it's beginning to get world supremacy and world dominance. So the history of the Cold War, I think you can see it in two layers. You can see the papacy continuing with this war with communism, but also the United States rising. So I will agree that the United States has not yet attained the status of the king of the north. The papacy is the king of the north. But the United States is just having a common enemy with the king of the north. So when you get to the end of the Cold War, then the papacy is fighting communism. United States is also fighting this person who is preventing it from reaching unilateralism. So this alliance between communism, United States and papacy becomes instrumental in making communism fall. So I may not be able to see United States as the king of the north in that history of the Cold War, but we see like two players fighting the same common enemy. This alliance that happens 79 to 89. And then I think, as Roger said, ukifika 1991, but sorry, when you get to 1989 going forward, then the United States starts disassociating itself with the papacy, and the papacy is disappointed. And I think through the line of the counterfight, we always mark 1989 as a disappointment for the papacy, because it expected these functions of communism to come back to Catholicism, but it adopted Western democracy, and United States is rising in its unilateralism, and it continues to get strong, and the papacy just becomes like anyone else. Okay.
Sure. Why I've written king of the north versus the king of the south? Because it's not a clear history, as Snyder said. It's still a fight until at this time period when we see the fall of USSR, and then now officially the USA still in background of papacy and becoming the king of the north by the years like 1991.
Yes. I am satisfied. What was confusing me, these sanctions, the purpose now I have understood that sanctions were not passed. Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied.
I think the sanctions is just a result of the alliance. And it's a way for the United States to creep over the USSR so that it can be actual.
And this one, you have a question or a comment? Okay. We have Nick, who has his comment.
We post a question on that maybe.
On that part.
Yeah.
Can we have a comment and then we have a question? Maybe it will be answered with a comment. Yeah.
So
Nick?
I'm taking the understanding which in the past the woman is taking of the as a point of reference. And therefore finding where the king of the north is, whether it's used or not, and using that idea of the woman. And when you go to the idea of the woman, you go to ideology. And therefore when you go to Cold War, you find out where the ideology is. And I think that is in agreement with what people something say. When you say it's the king of the north, you see the element of the woman in USA, which I think is the 17th of CS. In not in the separate way, like in the past, almost separated the ideology and the states are together. So when you go back to 1989, you might not necessarily see that intervention issue because that really asides who the king of the law is listened to. And then I think what just was asked last year was kind of the role of the king of the south mostly because it's the fight between king of the north and the king of the south and glorious land. And I think the king of the south is to restrain prophetically king of the north. And therefore, when she observes the Cold War between USA and USSR, she has in mind that maybe USSR is king of the south and performs the role of restraining some. And in this case, USA, maybe this USA is king of the north. But I think there is another, the next slide that says another line where you see that the king of the south ideologically looks similar to king of the north. The same important issue. What they are doing, really, they are competing the same things. And the king of and the glorious land stands on that level of society in arcade state during the of the south. So they will crash and it's the same thing would be seen Biden 2021 and they're saying is Biden Fulton or which or wherever, same things. So I think we could see king of the south colliding with glorious land. And that is something that from king of the south perform a role as well this training of them.
Okay. Yeah, Judith had a question. So I think we should be finalizing on that question because there are other things. Yes,
I was asking,
yes.
in Daniel 11, verses 21, but we see the military power. That is the key of no, with a military power. Therefore, yaliyo wakati nani alikuwa na laida kwa kueleza about who's the king of no between 1945 and 1989. Is it USA or is it purposely using the military power that is the USA?
That's the question you answered. You have been asking the question. That one has been answered. Is it not the same question that we are tackling? She's asking who is the king of the north between Eastern Europe.
Power
And
so probably I've understood. Sometimes they say in USA. Never way wanasema ni purpose. But when we go to that way now, we see the military power. Who is that with the military power in the first?
in this way not.
Yeah, that is, I think it is between 1945 to 1989.
Okay.
Yeah. And when the military power inatumiwa ni gani? Especially when they are both is about around that 1989, the military power. If the USA is the king of North, now the military power around that 1929.
The military power will say is USA. But also purpose is using the bring down the king of the south is.
So the confusion is between 1945 to 1989, the purpose
Has that ground, but it's a complex history. That's what that.
the same and the conflict.
No, it's not about that. No, it says that. We didn't say, okay, what you said? You said
The purpose is the king of the north.
in this time period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it?
I want somebody to give us a clear perspective. Roger said,
There is something God wants to say.
yes,
It's about the woman that you
yeah.
I want to comment on that. The USA that in that history, I think if you try to analyze those two, I think the USA in that history has an ideology.
Okay.
What we need to see is that when we speak about the woman being a symbol of an ideology, we don't only have one woman, right? We have two women. There is the woman of Revelation 12, the beauty woman, and there is the bad woman of Revelation 17, which represents two contrasting ideologies. So the reason as to we are saying the paper from the king of the North is that history is because the USA there is a woman who is controlling
A good.
that man. That's the good woman.
Yeah.
So this other woman is trying to seduce this one to leave this good woman and come to their side. Now she's trying to do that until she finally achieves that opportunity. Well, now the man is like Revelation 17 is quotation. I think we saw what I'm talking about. Explaining from the experiment out. So now the man now it leaves the good woman and now yokes itself with this bad and close the papers. Now that's what we are saying. The USA from its 9 is now going to it's trying to wrestle that crown of the king of the north from the papers. Yes, I think that was done years ago. We have done it. We have the day in Daniel 8 and it's mentioned 5 times. I looked that study and when it does that study shows that the 5 times that what day is mentioned, it means there's one of the meanings of that day which is the crown of the king. And then shows how that crown is transferred. When you come to the history of the 4th and 5th period, the papers it's the rest of that crown. You know when Augustus from West Rome and goes to Eastern Rome, he leaves the crown in Western Rome. It comes to the siege there and takes that crown. So the papers is holding that crown, at least from my understanding, up to 1989, 91, when the USA rest of that crown. The papers is planning to court the USA to help her do whatever she wants to do to impose her ideology in the papers. And the USA learns very fast that she does not need the papers. So takes off the crown and needs the papers and we can't take anything from the one.
So when we get to 1798, the population, the king of the, what is the king of the north? Right? We define the king of the north as an ideology with a state power. That's why the Papacy was king of the north in the Arctic, it has state power. 1798, the Devon woman comes, it lives as state power. Is it now the Republic? What we're saying is king of the north all the way through to 1959. I think this is part of the question. What's happening in World War II is trying to regain the king of the north in World War II, isn't it? But we can say it's all the way through to 1798. What is the Devon woman monarchies? I thought that they got state power. So now there is no king of the north leaving. On one level, 1945 history is trying to resurrect in Hitler. And then it has no power in the Cold War. There is no Papacy isn't really, I don't know if you can say that, or we're just going to say it's Papacy all the way through. Then it gets wrestled by the USA in 1989. So I think that's the complexity in my mind. What actually we define as what is a Papacy has no power from 45 to 1999, has no power from 1798 until it gets to the World War II. And now it's going to try again. And it's subject to energy of failure. So it doesn't get that worldwide domination of ideology. So at this point, question. Who said that?
For example, what said, I'm just asking this guys.
That's what I say. Are you saying that for you to become the king of the north, you need state power?
Yeah, I think that's how you define it. Yeah, in the past, that's how I understood it. See, the woman is, because that's what it said about this woman and the beast, is that it's the king of the north in America because it accepts this ideology, but it's a state. It has this ideology now. As for the state to be king of the north, it's got to have a kingdom. So I don't understand. I don't really understand what they're going to say from 1798 onwards. So that's what we'll tell you. Are we just going to say it's Papacy still because no one else has it? But no one's really trying to think king of the north in those gaps, are they? I mean, Papacy we could say nothing happened to, but they're not doing anything. It's half being anything. That makes sense.
Maybe my response to that would be when the Papacy takes that crown from the Imperial Roman Empire, they do not have state power, but they have taken that power from themselves. So they have the crown of the king of the north, and they go ahead to try to find the state to impose upon
So when you
them.
want them taking it, so
that
330,
Yes.
take the seat.
they take the seat which is the crown. Because that seat has a crown.
So to mark them as king of from the 330.
Yeah, the spirit that the people becomes the king of the north from 330. And then I think the dead limit by understanding from the recent presentation is the end of that relationship. It has nothing to do with the king of God. The end of the relationship is the dead limit. But the papers is still has that come upon.
So it doesn't have the seeds and the lockdown, and that's what the deadly.
And
When you said that, and you said the deadly wind is when it being vaccine.
the sit and the technology, are they different?
No, you don't say it's
Because I think she has the sit and the crown doing that without the state element.
Let's see.
Is the crown? But it is the crown.
I think it's not so confusing. It still referred to them. So relations are genus power. Is it power the state power, military power? When it says that the dragon gave the beast its seed, power and military power. So the seed of the seed of from. Yes. So we say that power is military power, but it's state power. It is giving us state. Yes. For instance, it's for you the authority. And I think it's the same thing when you come to 79, from 1979 to 1989, when the papacy and Reagan are meeting is 84. And then Reagan has this meeting, the papacy for like, well, it's 50 minutes, I don't know. They have this meeting, then that's when we say that the papacy, not the papacy, yeah, the papacy is now having the seat. And the United States is now having this alliance. So if you go, we also say that in 1979 to 1989, that there's this union between the two. But I think the actual date you can specifically mark was 84. If I remember studies back in 2018, I was 84. So it's very well. This alliance between the papacy and the Congress, this is very different. I think we're not done. I think the other line was the one of Seleucus, when he's regained Babylon through the Babylonian war from 311 to 307, and he gets a seat in 309. I think there are like 3 lines here. Because Seleucus gets now Babylon at the end of the Babylonian war. And what is his name again? The papacy will now get this power at 538, but there's only the 600. And then when you get to 79, the papacy will get the seat at 84, and then continue, like they will call the executive work at 81. So we just had 4 as in becoming the king of the world. You don't see that really. What's the same? Mark the king of the world, and gets it to stop. Even though it has to be. Yes. No, question when you said that for the king of the Lord, this. And if you get the states, then economic snake 4 6. Or
I don't know whether just you have been answered from the discussion. I think you are putting on the people online. Are we supposed to continue after much time? Because there are other questions that are not done. 7:30. Okay, what was the next question?
Before you move,
Yes.
Before you move to the 7th relation, there are other questions. I just want to reconcile what MIC
Yes.
what snake was saying.
And you give us
So
and you speak
when we talk about
speak at it without the preparing.
so when we talk about the king of the Lord, so the issue is when are we marking the king of the Lord? Is it when so the king of the Lord, Nick said, is this woman in an ideology? So this woman can be, you have a woman who has an ideology, when is this woman become the king of the north? Is when this woman is seated on the throne, when it has the crown.
Yes.
So and if that is the case, or if we agree with that one, so I think that one will solve the issue
thoughts.
that's yeah, yes, I'm connected. We have all the same woman. If we I told the study authors say woman has the day, the woman is over the steps. Look, that woman is which is over there, this woman which has an ideology. But when is this woman take the crown and become the when this woman takes the crown, the seat on the throne, I think that is what am I saying the stage aspect of it should understand.
Then we can take it. So the next question. Oh, the next question is the next question is clarification on serious Caesar. Clarification to the two Caesars. Which one is external? Okay. Between Bombay and Julius Caesar. Yes, we talk about internal, one is internal, the other one is external. Explain what clarify. Okay. Also the grass can I remember frontier and they explain, I know people follow to the studies. Someone can frontier and explain. Between Bombay and Caesar. You say please sit the internal and external. Yeah, I explained that. Yes. Please want to explain? Yes, no, yes.
I'm saying Julius Caesar is internal, Pompey is external.
Yes.
In the sense that Julius Caesar is doing our big law, wants to rest or protect power. But Pompey is in a military expedition far away from their home into there. So we're involved in an external issue. Rome attacked an external power, but Julius Caesar is making some political maneuvers within Rome to take the Pontifex Maximus and their
And the judicial. I think the question has been well answered. I agree with your thoughts. And for that, with a different opinion or a contrary one? Okay, the next question is
human Russia. This is the question that you are trying to answer.
yes.
Yeah. So you can answer.
Just read the question to you see.
So the question is, human Russia, 1945, as the king of the south.
Yes.
Then he said, 1989, we see the king of the south. Then Russia is the king of the south. How comes we have Russia? You have the south before the
So, what's your expectation? You wanted to have the king of the south because you were saying you can only see the king of the south here, at least with France in 1788, and then you see Russia in 1989. But you have a problem when I mark 1945 USSR. So, your question is, how comes? Yes. 1889. Yeah. Okay. To me, maybe I need some time to trace the cow of the king of the south because the from 31 PC. If this is 31, it's the rent that we mark 65 to C 63 and 31. Egypt is being conquered. So we can say that when PC, the king of the south, is dead. And then we have 360 days which is being talked in the book of Daniel. And then you can't see the king of the south there in that time. So unless someone has got that history clear in their mind, you can trace the power of the king of the south. Because in 1798, before 1798, there was a French Revolution, and we talk of Revelation 6:11 verse 8, whereby there was that power. How does that first read?
Bottomless pit.
Yeah, the power from the bottomless pit. So in that kind of period of the French Revolution, it's when we see a power rising up, and then we can see by the time of the hand, which is 1788, now we have the power in place, which is the king of the south. But how it changes by the 1989, roughly the last of the best start, maybe someone else can trace that for us if you are again this. We are big for that.
So the reason like that one BC, you have
Can you come front and they,
no, I'll just explain for me.
okay?
So in that one BC, you have the king of the south
Yes,
dies,
yes,
which is conquered. So there's a death.
yeah,
So what we need to see next is for the king of the south come back into this resurrection.
and selection.
So again, we approach Revelation 11:9, we have all the answer,
Yeah,
which is there. This is the answer of godless.
Yeah.
Godless speech is a great.
yeah,
So that is coming from the godless is a resurrection.
Yeah.
So we see a resurrection during the Great Revolution. So you can see that France becomes the king of the south way before that.
Yeah.
And it's marked at the beginning of the French Revolution. France takes on the title
the king of the-
1789.
yeah, 1798, 1799 around.
1789 to 89. Hence the French Revolution. So
What was the year for the French Revolution?
1789.
Okay,
So I'm saying this, France becomes the king of the south. 1789.
okay,
Okay, that's what we say. Another way is let's say 496, 538. France is the king of the north. First one of the Catholic Church. So it's the king of the north called that. Why? We can't think that way. So it means yes. I'm saying that's something else is that we can't solve it. In 1789 at the beginning of the revolution. So if then use that light, you can then say that we need to see Russia from the king of the south way before 19. And I'm saying if we have a revolution marking the beginning of France as the king of the south, we need to then look at where does this king of the south come up? And we mark the beginning of Russia as the king of the south, the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917.
1917.
Yeah, the Bolshevik Revolution. So I think Russia becomes the king of the south with the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. And that's why I think for 1917, when we do the studies of Fatima, this thing of dedicating Russia, why is Satan telling these children, us to work so hard to dedicate Russia? It's because Russia is not dedicated to them, to Satan.
Okay.
It's not dedicated to God. And who is that from the sons of the lectures? The king of the south.
Communism.
Yeah.
It has communism. So, are you answered?
No.
Okay, thank you. Is there another question? Eh? Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, Sabrina, what's the question would be? Then answer. It's the one about Magdalene. I don't know.
The question said that 2016
Yes.
about Twitter in the phone. How can we apply that? Those classes in 1980. In connection with the public, in connection with that too.
Yeah, I think it's, well, the first thing is the principle that God is calling out a people now, a new church, I guess you could say, from the fact that we see it Caesarea Philippi, and there's this whole question around who Christ is. So it's what's the truth about the Godhead? And this is something we're wrestling with as a movement. It's understanding who God is and the nature of God's kingdom. So I think that's the connection I was making in Caesarea Philippi, the fact that it means a stone. And so there's something here about connecting it to the stone of Daniel 2, but cut out of the mountain. And then it goes on to talk about how God's going to build the church on this rock. And I think that we're doing that work of building the kingdom of heaven. And I wanted to pull out the point about giving authority to the church, and it's connected to the sealing and the binding. So now God is giving authority to this movement to seal and bind as the work of the third angel, so that we can have the authority to make decisions that God is going to endorse down here. And I'm connecting that to the fact that we're learning how to be a government with God, and that God is giving us authority to be on a level with God. So I think those are the points I was making from that. I think there is a place to say that who is the rock that this church has been built? Foundation is Christ. But you can use, so I don't know if this is showing, let me say it a different way. So there is we would say that rock is Christ, and that we are the stones being placed on that. But I think another way of approaching it is to say, what is that foundation and what are these stones? What are we building? And we're building an institution. And so our old model says we're going to bring stones to it like Paul did. We're going to evangelize and bring lots of people in. But we're saying that's not really our model now. So what do this foundation and stones represent? I think we did still say it was doctrine as well. So we're bringing doctrine to a firm foundation, and we're building a structure, an institution based on the truth about doctrine, the doctrine of equality primarily. And so we could say on that model that the truth about Christ, the truth of Christ's kingdom is the foundation, and we're part of that foundation. So on a bigger scale, God's building a church here, but it's building a kingdom or a government for heaven. So we are going to become the foundation of the government, and the government is the foundation for society, you could say. So I think there's an argument you could bring that we are that foundation now for the universe, I guess, building the church of God, which includes everyone in the universe. So that, and you can use, there's Ephesians 2:20 says, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone. So that one makes Christ the chief cornerstone, if you make it the major stone, but the apostles and prophets are the foundation with Christ. And I think we can say that 144,000 are that foundation with Christ. And this imagery is in the fact that when we're redeemed, we sit down in the throne with God to judge. So we're on a level with God. And the fact that, another point I was going to make, that here it says the apostles and prophets are the foundation, so that people with the truth about God can form the foundation because they understand how God thinks and they're working, operating with God to form that government, and the rest of the universe is going to be reliant upon those people. So we would say that 144,000 have many characteristics that Christ has. So they are they're without fault, it says in Revelation 14. And Pilate says, I found no fault in Christ. They're without guile. Christ is without guile. They are the first fruits, and Christ is the first fruits of the resurrection. So that they have this foundational place in the great controversy. And we said, I think we used to say in the past, I'm not sure if I got a quote for this, but it's based on the testimony of the 144,000 that they're living at the end of the world in the worst time of Earth's history. And they have this perfect character. This is the old model, that God can now resurrect everyone else. Because if they can perfect a character at the worst time in Earth's history, during the Mark of the Beast time period, then everyone who's ever lived could have perfected that character. And on the strength of their testimony, Christ is going to have a license or can legally now resurrect everyone else. But I think if we shift that into, they have the best understanding of equality, they understand God more than any other generation, and from that basis they can operate like God, they can run a government, and they agree that the government of God is fair and just. And that's what the whole controversy is about. Satan's saying, this government isn't fair, you're not a fair God, you don't rule properly.
And so the controversy, Satan can be silenced if there's a whole group of people that say, no, we agree with God. And we do that because we understand equality now. So when you look at that, based on the strength of our testimony, if Martin Luther had had the light we have, Martin Luther would be at the same place. Because he's not, Satan can say, he's sexist and racist, you can't bring him into the kingdom. But God can say, no, I can. Because if he'd had the light these people have, he would have done the same thing. And they've done it. So on the strength of the foundation, the 140,000, I can now resurrect everybody else. So that's another aspect of it. That makes sense. And Josephine, do you have a question? Second question? Oh, sorry, not just thanks.
No, I wanted to actually ask something that you wanted to understand how that's connected then to is why does Christ specific tell this inside this story about the rock destroying this person? It was not that that's where they are to face the causes of Caesarea Philippi.
Yes.
So they can say the seat of Caesarea Philippi, but that city was built of stones going from mountain. You can see on the other side.
Yeah.
So they can connect. There is a city. Stones were cut from that mountain to build that city. So Christ is using that analogy to tell you what I will do with the spiritual. So the fact that there is a mountain, a stone cut from that one, but we done it too.
And in Daniel 2 as well, you have the stone cut out of the mountain, which we then are told in Daniel 2 becomes a great mountain itself. So to me, that's a symbol of this. It's the cornerstone or the foundation of the new mountain. So we could discuss when that happens, because we used to say this is when we cut out of SDA Church, we go to the world and we win. Whether that's a Nephilims or whatever, they join us. But I think it destroys the image first, and then it grows into a great mountain. So we can discuss what that actually means. But I think this is the redeemable relatives. Well, this is God's kingdom after this. But at least we know it grows into a mountain. So it becomes the foundation of a new mountain. So it's what it backs up that point. So you want to do the last one? Is there another question? Okay. Well, I thought it's just the right. So we close in prayer then? Okay, let's pray. Our dear loving God, we thank you for the privilege of being here in person and being able to discuss these important topics, to have a meeting of minds, to share our ideas, to correct our wrong ideas and to learn from each other. I thank you for the privilege, and I pray that as we go to our beds now, that you'll give each one a good night's rest and bring us safely back tomorrow to once more have sweet fellowship. We thank you now, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.